I don't want to jump in the middle of y'all talking, so that's why I was like, let me let y'all finish. All right. My name is Courtney, and I guess we're going with Crack the Code.
Yeah.
Crack the Code. This is Crack the Code. And tell us your name.
So my name is Ikenna Ezala, and I was born in Lagos, Nigeria. I live in Greenville, South Carolina, and I am a doctoral student.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Max Lit. I'm a local writer, author, poet, originally from New York City, Jamaica, Queens, now here in Greenville, South Carolina.
Well, Crack the Code is a new web series that, and maybe podcast too, that we kind of want to talk about the issues that matter to us and the things that are happening in this world and how can we move forward. And the first topic, we kind of wanted to talk about, I guess, things that's happening in the Black community and how we should do, what we should do about it, and oppression. I know that's something that goes all the way back to slavery, and how does it still affect us now?
Well, that you could talk about that for days. But I think when it comes to things that Black people should be addressing, I think it starts with the individual. And then if you have a family, spreads to your family, then the people that you associate with. I think a lot of times we look for other people to be responsible for what's happening in our community. We look to Black leaders, we look to politicians. And when you look at the history of Black people, even from slavery, they weren't looking for anyone else to fix it. They attacked problems, even slavery, the individuals who were at the forefront of abolishing slavery weren't looking initially to others to help. Other people got involved, white people got involved, and I think anything that affects the Black community, the kind of stereotype is, well, once the white people get involved, then we can really make some progress. I think the days of that is pretty much over because we're I guess I shouldn't say we're not in a position to where the white construct matters to how far we advance, because it does, because that's just society, that's the way that is. But we haven't really tapped into our power as individuals and as a community to see how strong we can be in attacking those problems on our own.
But do you think that we would get further along, or we would, I don't know if it would be faster or if it would be more successful if others did come aboard, and not just whites, but like any race or any, ethnicity, whatever, would come along and we all work together to, I guess, gain equality amongst us all. Do you think that would help, or you think that, no, we got to start with us first? Or
I think, okay, so my friend once said online that only he who creates is free. So the issue is that, to answer your question in a roundabout way, is that whenever we think of wealth, we think about somebody having a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But the wealth isn't the person who has a lot, but the person who is able to create value and circulate knowledge and values. So that is the wealth. Now, involved in the Black community, the thing is, every discussion always centers on gaining access to systems that were created. Mm-hmm. But by so doing, you subject yourself to the ownership of those systems. Mm-hmm. So the question is not so much how can we access existing systems, even though that might be part of it. But the main thing is how the Black community individually can become creators,
build
of their own destiny, and create new things that are suited to the environment of the Black neighborhoods and the different issues plaguing the Black community. That is what I think is a first step, because unless we do that, then we're just going about in circles. So one of the most important things that an individual needs to know is when someone is has maybe they're struggling, bills, paycheck to paycheck.
Mhm.
This person needs money. This person needs this. Well, that's a superficial observation.
Mhm.
What the person might need is financial discipline
Mhm.
to be able to use what they have to create something in order to institute a system whereby they can have everything they need.
Mhm.
Giving someone a lot of money who has the appearance of needing it might only corrupt them
Right.
and paralyze them.
Right.
It might be certain principles the person needs instilled. That's why they're in the condition that they're in. For the Black community, the question is, why are we always in the same situation?
Mhm.
Why is it always the same thing manifesting in different forms?
Mhm.
What is it that we haven't discovered yet? And so I think it is that whole, we need to become creators in some capacity, and other people getting involved will only make us reliant and dependent upon others. Yeah, we can have a few helps here and there, but we have to spearhead and lead, create, and institute in order to be free in all capacities.
Malcolm X said one time when white people were asking him, well, how can we get involved? In the beginning, he was like, you can't.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Right.
I remember that in this book, autobiography.
And it wasn't a knock on them. It wasn't saying, well, we want to exclude you. He honestly was saying, we want to build first. Once we build, then if you want to get involved, we're more than happy to get your help or for you just to be a part of what we're doing. And I think that's essential too. A lot of people have the feeling that we need help from other communities and other groups. And of course, you need help to do anything that's going to be worth doing. But at the end of the day, what you really need, once you said it's created and the construct is there, and now we're building off of that, you need participation. You need help as far as, like, if you're moving someone from one place to the next, you need bodies. You know, you need strength. You need to be able to move that big piece of furniture with 4 or 5 people as opposed to moving it with 1 or 2 people. Kind of way that you can break that down is if you go to your friends and your family in your community, say, hey, I need help moving. Is there any way you can help me? And they say, yeah, we can help you. No problem. Let us know what we can do. Then you feel better about it as opposed to when you ask all your friends and your family, can you help? And they tell you no. And then you go to someone maybe at your job that you never interacted with. And you say, hey, listen, kind of need some help. I don't have a lot of hands. Can you help me? You're like, sure, you're happy for the help, but you really wished your friends and family would have been there for you. And I think if we look at it, I think a lot of us do look at it from that point of view, that we are willing to accept help from the outside. But what we really want is help from people inside.
So like an example of that would be, for the longest, Black people weren't allowed to read and get education, and then they weren't allowed to be a part of traditional colleges and universities, so they created HBCUs.
Right. I was thinking that.
Yeah, so I guess, and that's what you mean by to create your own. Is there any other? I know we have these Black-owned businesses, but are there any other ways that we can create our own and sustain ourselves? Because when I think about that, it almost kind of means to me like almost segregation. Like, all right, we have our own community, we have our own lives, and we're not really messing with people over there. And I don't know how I feel about that. And maybe I'm thinking about it wrong.
I see what you're alluding to. So I think this is where it enters these murky waters where, okay, I'm Black, right? That's just the bottom line, right? So somebody can walk in the room and they're white. Acknowledging differences has become a stigma today. I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, and even within the Nigerian culture, there are different tribal groups. We have differences. Differences, the ennoblement of those differences is what introduces beauty to life, and we can't run away from that. We can exchange the best of what we've cultivated. I mean, a plant will exchange the best of what is cultivated for the environment. Same with an animal. Then we exchange, and that's what creates this, cycle. So there's nothing wrong with an individual saying, "Wow, in the Black community, I see certain issues. I'm not closing myself to interaction. I just realized that there are issues here that demands my energy, so I'm going to give it." If somebody else needs my issue, needs my energy or attention or help from any other race, then I will give it equally and munificently. The whole idea is that there's nothing wrong with seeing, because what happens is that every time you have a prodigy come out of the black community and they're really intelligent, because they're so fearful of being called segregationist, then they almost abandon the community and go move to a wealthy neighborhood, and they don't interact with the black community because they want to, facilitate the racial harmony. There's nothing wrong with interacting with everyone and being harmonious, but there's also a duty that if you come out of a neighborhood and there are issues there, for you to seek ways to uplift and promote it. There's nothing absolutely wrong with that. And during harder times of segregation, under the most intense pressure socially, people were creating businesses. Everything that the community needed to sustain itself was being created under times of little financial flow, financial monetary availability. And people were being ingenious. And all that we're asking is, if there's a lot of money coming out of this neighborhood that's primarily black, there's nothing wrong with saying, is there a black-owned bank, right? If you have the NBA, you have how many owners? But look at the percentage of African Americans. What's wrong with saying some black ownership? Not because you want to push races out, but saying that representation, there's nothing at each level should be justified. So it is natural, and every other race does that. And you do it not so you can gain power and so that you can domineer over others, but it's so that you can have at each level the access to promote the welfare of those who might not be able to for themselves.
And I always go back to the civil rights era, because anybody who was affiliated with anything during that era, they were all leaders. They were all at the forefront. All of them. There wasn't anybody who was like, man, you're not carrying your weight. You think about like a guy like Medgar Evers, who gets kind of lost in the conversation when it talks about civil rights. He had a huge influence on that. And he wasn't really on the level of a Malcolm X or a Martin Luther King or whatever like that. But he still had influence. And I think a lot of people may look at it as, well, I'm not on the top tier, so what can I do? But I always look at it as it being strength in numbers.
Right.
It's like if you got 5 people on the top, but you got thousands on the second, third, and fourth tier, then there's nothing impossible for you to do. And I think a lot of it has to do with the generations behind us, or the generations behind those civil rights leaders. They heard no and did not accept no. The generations behind them saw where they went and was like, all right, we're good. Well, let's try something else. And they heard no, and they're like, all right, we're okay. I don't want to rock the boat too much. We're good. It's like you talk about the NBA and the owners, and you look at a guy like LeBron James, and Carmelo Anthony and Dwayne Wade and all of those guys who try to speak as often as they can. But they're tempered because they're like, well, the guy who signs my checks is white.
Right.
That guy's a billionaire. And so LeBron James's mindset is, well, I want to be a billionaire mogul so that I don't have to go and watch what I say or watch what I do because I'm worried about the guy who signs my check. I want to sign my checks. I want to sign my boys' checks. I look at what LeBron James has done as far as his team of people that he has. And he didn't say, all right, guys, here's $1 million. Do what you want with it. He says, hey, here's a job. Not, I'm going to charge you with getting my sneakers, or I'm going to charge you with getting my dry cleaning. He says, you're my agent. You're the marketing guy. You're this guy. I expect greatness from all of y'all because that's what I'm trying to do. I don't think we have enough people like that.
I think he who controls the funds controls the tongue. So that's how you have a political system where the current president could become elected because of him owning his businesses. No one can fire me because I hired myself.
Right.
All my funds are in the stock market, so I can speak, and you can choose to, do anything you want. But I'm self-sustaining, and that talk, I think it speaks to the theory of change. Whenever we talk about change, the mistake we make is by looking at even big figures, and we often think everything has to be achieved in our lifetime
Mm-hmm.
that we have to be at the forefront, and it has to be something grand that gets notoriety.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is, for every advancement in society, the light or anything, there are always people who came before who were doing research. And then people took the research
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
then
Yeah.
advanced it a little.
Yeah.
And then someone will come after and
Mm-hmm.
advance it.
Yeah.
So it is a personal conceit to even want to do something so grand that change everything within your lifetime. That's not how life works.
Yeah.
Right.
Life works is that you see one small issue, you say, and this is the key, is that how can I use my expertise and the lessons of my experiences
Mm-hmm. To get the ball rolling.
to actually ennoble something that's existing, to elevate it.
Mm-hmm.
That little slice, you do that, and then you perfect that, and then help will start coming.
Yeah.
And then when you leave, somebody will keep on doing it. And then 50 years down the line, they'll say, oh, wow, look at this big organization that started by this
From
person.
an idea.
But, I mean, the NAACP wasn't even big. I mean, they were, a ragtag group of folks.
Mm-hmm.
And then now it's this, this humongous organization. So I think that we need to lower all these desires for notoriety,
Mm-hmm.
for fame,
Mm-hmm.
and just say, what have I experienced? What are the lessons from it? And how can my expertise be used to further help someone else out?
Mm-hmm.
And focusing the energy on that little thing. Shakespeare didn't set out to change the world or
Yeah.
anything. He just, I write well, I want to communicate issues and concepts. He did it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what he focused on. So we need to just focus on small things that we can handle within the framework of our expertise and our knowledge and
Yeah.
our desires and aspirations. Do it well, and then allow the next generation to come and move it along.
Yeah.
It's a marathon race. It's a relay
Yeah.
race. It's not a long 400-meter sprint by
Mhm.
ourselves. I think that's the point that I'm trying to get to, and then being okay with that.
Mhm.
Yeah.